So do you know anything about loot boxes? Do you stay up to date with that discussion or anything?
Not really. Loot boxes is really on an Xbox thing, yeah?
Um, it's
Micro.
on everything. It actually
It's
started
on everything.
with
Oh,
Team
like
Fortress
loot
2.
boxes as in like in Halo where you do the
It is in Halo, yeah.
um
So
yeah,
what
yeah.
loot
I think I
boxes
know. Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
defined by is it's a random numerical generation RNG where you pay real world money to open a
Mhm.
virtual in-game item. This doesn't have to be an actual box per se. It could be a crystal, it could be a card pack, whatever, and it will
Yeah.
open up and give you something like in game. It could be skins, it could be guns, what have you, just something that's RNG. Um, that's what a loot box is. So, it
Yeah.
started back in Team Fortress 2, where you had to pay for the keys to open it. Sometimes you pay virtual
Yeah.
currency to open it. Do you know about any of that? You said with Halo you might have.
Yeah, with Halo, with Final Fantasy,
Final Fantasy has it?
yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Just
So,
I spend a lot of money on those things sometimes.
oh, you have? Oh shit.
Yeah,
I hope you haven't spent too much,
when it's
but
a game that I'm really into, um, I'd spend a lot of money on it.
okay. Well, anyway, there's been recent news on it, so I want to start off before we get into it with my last video. I
Okay.
ended the video saying that loot boxes, might stick around, and what I meant by that was,
Mhm.
for the viewers, is that, like, loot boxes will probably might stick around if we, just end the discussion here and we just say that we've won the argument just because Star Wars and, Shadow of War are taking it out. But recent news has um, been, saying, like, for instance, in Korea, I don't know if you heard anything there, but they've actually
Mhm.
successfully penalized three different game companies, and in total, they've sued them for about $950,000. So,
Wow. Shit.
yeah, it's starting to get through, mainly in other countries more than America.
So loot boxes are becoming illegal in
Yeah,
some
that's
places. Is that
actually
right?
exactly what I was going to name the video. Actually, it's starting to become
Oh
illegal,
wow.
which is a good thing. Talking of which, there's been recent news from Netherlands. They've actually been looking into 10 different games that are highly popular on things like YouTube and Twitch, and they found that
Mhm.
four of those 10 games are actually breaking the laws, gambling laws within the country. And so they've
Gambling. Oh
said
yeah.
if they don't change the law within 8 weeks, then they're going to penalize them as well as revealing the names of those four games, because we don't know what they are yet. I figure it might be CSGO, one of them, but I can't tell what the others are. Because they define that
Yeah.
they're illegal because you have a way of getting that real world money back from what you've got. Kind of like a slot machine.
Oh yeah.
Like you trade in the gun skins from CSGO, for instance, on CSGO Lotto or something. I don't know if you know
All
what
right.
that. So stuff like that they're talking about makes it illegal. So
Mm.
what do you think of that?
I think that's a bit. I don't know. I don't think they should be legal. Maybe rules or what is it? What's that word?
Well, ESRB. Yeah,
Restrictions. Maybe
I agree.
should
There
be
should be
implemented.
restrictions, but they tried to implement it, but
Yeah. It failed.
Senator Hassan contacted with the ASRB with an open letter, and they said, we're looking into what this is because it's not defined as gambling by legal definitions in America,
Mhm.
even though it is in China, and they don't actually allow them in China, right? They do in
Mm.
America, and they said, we're looking into it, so it might be best if you just put up some sort of restrictions, and their response back a couple weeks later was just to slap on a tag to every game released after the fact that will have a in-game purchases label, which means anything with any sort of in-game purchases, DLC, microtransactions, loot boxes, whatever, will have a label that says that you can purchase things on as an extension of the game, you know, like DLC or what have you. So it doesn't really tackle the issue, you know. There's not a. I thought they would do a rating system after that, like, which is still pretty vague or something. Like, you know, DLC and microtransactions have a separate rating from the game to tell how bad each one of them is. But no, it's just like any game that has it, they'll just get this label slapped on. Doesn't affect any games that's currently released, of course, but.
Wondering what you got inside, because it reeks of fist.
So, what do you think of that response?
Very much so. Enough of these gangs.
Well, personally, I think it's a lazy way for the ESRB to tackle the issue. It's kind of a way of avoiding the issue, which is why politicians have clearly stepped in. For instance, with Bungie recently, the government visited them for to get a better understanding of games and loot boxes, to try and understand how it's illegal. And with my statement in the last video, how I said that it might actually stick around is because, well, they are taking it out of some games because it's clearly right now looking pretty bad. What mainly matters for these isn't just someone talking about it, it's the main community talking about it, because plenty of games have it. You know, most of the stories of people losing thousands of dollars and spending thousands of dollars are from, like, FIFA and Madden, for instance. Yeah, no one complains about that. Nothing's happening there.
Yeah.
And you know, there's nothing happening there, but because no one's really talking about it.
Yeah.
But, sorry to interrupt you again.
That's okay.
Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah. So, you know, where it really matters is with the politicians, and the politician, state rep, Chris Lee, he put out 4 bills. 2 of them were to put up age restrictions for loot boxes.
Age restrictions, yeah.
Yeah, and the other 2 were, to put up, like, that you have to post drop rate percentages and so forth to know that they're not just, like, fucking with
Wouldn't
the
that
system.
be a bit too complicated to control? Would that be too complicated to control for the developers, or?
No, it really wouldn't, actually.
No, it won't, wouldn't? Okay.
No.
Is it because developers don't want to do it?
Yes,
Or-
it's actually, because we talk about this, the whole reason why the
Because they lose
discussion
money,
came,
or?
it's because then they can't, because there's a scheme called turning players into payers, which comes from mobile gaming, right? Where they track the statistics and records of individual players. This is a long one to explain, which is why I'm getting here first, sorry. And so they track the stats of players, for instance, and they applied this to COD World War II, where they see certain things like, you know, they look at your kill-death ratio, what guns you use mainly, and they're like, okay, this person doesn't seem to spend as much money, or they spend it here, and they seem to do better with X. So, you know, let's push this this monetization aspect towards them. So, like, with Call of Duty, for instance, they fucked with the matchmaking, and if you don't believe me, before I get on to this, with Halo 3 back in 2008, they actually had a matchmaking system related to what level you were is who you would find. So this is possible to do. So with COD World War 2, they changed the matchmaking pattern. So when you were low level or you had a bad KD ratio and you didn't purchase loot boxes, you'd be matched up with someone who did and does have a high KD ratio, right? That way you get your ass kicked and you see their good gun from the kill cam and you're like, okay, I need that gun to beat him, but I can only get it through loot boxes, right? And then when you play it, you do the loot box, you get the gun, they then can fuck with what you earn and then give you something like a sniper and then give you a long range map where that sniper is heavily utilized with people who also have really low KD ratios or lower than yours, right? So you feel good for having it, so you're more incentivized to spend
Yeah.
more. And that's what they're talking about, because they
Yeah.
can just fiddle with your earnings and so forth. Wait, why are these guys fighting? So yeah, they just want to, that bill is just like to control that, so it's not just like you're always getting the same fucking spray,
Same thing.
fucking Overwatch over and over again. And in
Yep.
China, now that I'm talking
I've
about
noticed with loot boxes, that it's you get multiple of something that you don't want, and you end up spending more money to eventually get what you want.
and my biggest complaint
Sometimes I think it's rigged, but I don't know if it's just pure luck or is it rigged.
well, that's a problem. We can't confirm if it is or isn't rigged
Yeah,
with each one of them, you know, and that's why the
Yeah.
bill was introduced, so that way they would have to show that it
I get
is
someone to
random
anchor,
and it
please?
isn't rigged. But my biggest concern with loot boxes, or complaint I would say, is the fact that you're not just looking at something and saying, you know, I want this, so I'll buy this. It's more like, I
Yeah.
want this, so I hope I get it when I buy for the loot box, you know?
Yes.
And
yes.
with Overwatch, you know, because what we were talking about before with disclosing the odds, China actually has it as illegal loot boxes there. They consider it gambling, and they're very strict on gambling and gambling laws.
They are. Yeah.
So they were gonna outright not sell Overwatch there if
Loot
they
box.
didn't take out
Overwatch.
loot boxes, or like at least post the drop rates, which was their ultimatum for the loot boxes, and they were so unwilling to do it. They actually implemented a different reward system as opposed to the loot boxes, just so they could sell in China,
like
just to
like
avoid
DLC, or instead of loot boxes, maybe some games do DLC and they have those items through a DLC instead of a loot box.
Yeah, which is how I much prefer it. I mean, there are some
Yeah.
that I'm like, it's not worth this much money, or you know, it's just a waste to include it. But like,
Yes.
it's still a lot better. Like, there's some sort of discussion whether it is or isn't worth the cases, and the value is dependent on like how valuable it is to each individual. But like, at least you're looking at that something and saying, I actually want to unlock loot boxes, which you're not.
Confiscated after names to finances.
Yeah.
The brethren who didn't object were appointed mage hunters. Those who succumbed were just scared to stand up to him.
Boxes, have loot boxes in your game, with the government getting quite involved in everyone publicly shaming anyone who does have it. Plus with Monster Hunter World that you have, and the game that I'm playing,
Yeah.
The Witcher, and so forth, how they not only don't include them but outright speak out about them. They're getting quite good PR rep and looking quite good in the eyes of the consumer for doing so.
Mm.
I'm not sure if loot boxes would outright die, but you know, where how things are going, it's looking like they'll be pretty few and far between pretty soon. I'm assuming America.
I think
will
if
get
they
some-
if maybe loot boxes should. Oh, sorry. There's a lot of different ways people get content for their games. Loot boxes being that. I've seen the range of games that loot boxes are available in those MMOs, or like because on Halo the loot boxes are used in the multiplayer
yeah, the
side of
mode.
the game.
Yeah, I can't
You
remember
use
what
yeah,
that was,
like fire. I think it was like firefight, and there was you can use them in the forge, or in the multiple multiplayer, the multiplayer online mode of it, and you just there is a system where you can get loot boxes for free.
which is where people are like, you know, it's not that bad, but I've made a whole video explaining that's just
Yeah,
free
and there's a lot of it.
advertisement.
Yeah,
You know?
it is. Yeah, and I found that a lot of people do buy a lot of the packs, the loot boxes from Halo, to try and get those rare items, those rare vehicles, those rare guns, to be able to win in the multiplayer mode. And there's also I've noticed there's also a lot of self-esteem implemented in it, where a lot of people are actually encouraged to get the high-end stuff, or they get bullied by it. They get bullied and called a noob if they don't have these high-end items. So they're pressured into buying loot boxes
None other.
Yeah, that is an issue I've
to
actually thought
be
about.
able to be to be able to be not be hassled in game by other players and stuff like that. I've noticed.
No need to yell.
That is a pretty bad social experience, actually.
Yeah, it's just, but loot box. I think maybe they should change maybe the way they do loot boxes. I don't know. Maybe a reward system, like you can get a rare loot box. I think that was just DLC. Like I was just saying that I think there should be more DLC, less loot box. Maybe I don't know. That's
Yeah,
I think that's
I
what
agree.
because DLC is reasonably priced, and if they bundled a certain amount of content in a DLC, then I think that would work out a bit better.
Absolutely.
Like with Halo, for Halo, for instance, maybe they will have an MMO DLC where they include like probably like a certain type of equipment and skins or stuff like that in a DLC. So then you can use that in the MMO, and it's your choice. You're not like punched in the face with all these loot boxes and
Yeah. So now that you talk about that as well, a big complaint that people had with Cold War II and Halo is how
Halo.
from the previous CODs and from Halo Reach to Halo 5, they instead of having the progression tied to levels in Call of Duty, for instance, and
Yeah, I see it
lootouts
too.
that way, you get them through loot boxes instead, And with Halo, you get all your stuff through loot boxes instead of just earning credits as you do better. You get more credits in the game, online, offline, and so forth. And you
It is
spend
up,
it
it's up.
on that as well as get certain tiers unlocked for cosmetics to buy,
Yeah.
which is a much better progression system. But having it tied to loot boxes is just out the window, and it's just bloody weird. It's too clear that it's being monetized too. Yeah, and
Yeah.
another point that you get on is even if you do have loot boxes, it wouldn't really be called loot boxes if you couldn't pay for it in one way or another with real world money.
Yeah.
But I don't have an issue with what is it, Payday 2, how it has the cards. Every time you complete a job, you get these one or three cards
Yeah.
that you click and it flips over and it gives you either a cosmetic, a gun attachment, or
Yeah.
something like that. And you select one of the three, then it flips over. It's random, the miracle generation, just like a loot box. But you're not really paying real world money for it, So there's no real issue with it. The time we got issues from Payday 2 and the loot boxes
Yeah.
was when they included the safes, which is kind of the same thing for cosmetic skins, even though those skins actually sometimes have stats connected to them. Because they're just
Yep.
like loot, they're actually loot boxes. You can actually pay for them, as well as you have to pay for the key to open those safes. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so because you can spend real world money on it, that people have issue.
Thing I liked about Halo though is that there was some loot boxes that you could pay for, like I said, the free ones where you could pay for with points that you gather from the game,
Real world
from
currency.
completing things, and yeah.
To me, that real world currency, I've talked about the advertising in game, so I won't get on that point too much, which is tied to free loot boxes as well as the currency. But another thing about in-game currency is to avoid it being tied to gambling in the legal definition.
Yeah, true. Oh,
Which
yeah,
is
yeah.
because you're not spending real-world money to directly get that in-game item. You're spending it to buy the chips to put in the slot machine. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
that's all I see when I see that. Yeah,
yeah.
it's also tying it into the progression system, which a big problem that I have with Star Wars is the fact that they didn't build the game first. They built the loot boxes first and built the game around that.
Yeah.
To complement that, you know, and
Oh,
everyone
right.
can see and feel it when they play the game.
Mm. Makes you think sometimes, I guess. Those things, like where they literally created loot boxes first and then created the game itself.
Show me what you got.
So, do you have any fun?
What game was that? Was that the new? I'm. I'll have a think. Final statements. Just really, I think there needs to be a balance between loot boxes and game itself. I think there should be balance, not outright where the game is centered around loot boxes. That should be an offline, not offline. Sorry, there should be a should be something with the game where you could play the game without worry about having to constantly have to get loot boxes. There should be something you can play the game and not pay a cent as well and still enjoy the game itself without having to spend a lot of money on loot boxes to actually progress or make the gaming experience better. There should be something just balance. That's my final statement, really.
Okay. Mine would be that I hope we finally find a way to make loot boxes outright illegal at this point. We bring that sort of control or regulation to other parts of
regulation
other
control.
parts of the world, and you know, just really crack down on it, and that the conversation just keeps going, which is the point of making this video, is just to keep it going, don't let it die out. Anyway, I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below.